Highland festivals, Highland games, Scottish games, whatever you want to call them. How in the hell do you prepare to go to one of these things? Big question, a lot of responsibility. That's what we're talking about today, everydaykt number 264. How do you prepare to go to one of these events? So the first and most important piece of this question is, who are you going with? Because this dictates the entire rest of that equation. Are you bringing children, or are you going as an adult to adult? Two entirely separate paths of decision. We're going to talk about both a little bit based on today's experience. Went up to New Hampshire Highland Games up at Loon. I want to thank Michael over at Kiltman. Awesome stuff, and thanks for having me out there. It was pretty cool. And also, big shout out to my friends Michael Katz, my new friend. I proved that it actually exists. Andrew, I forgot to how to pronounce your last name. Also, Andy Novick down at the First Aid booth. Thank you guys. It was very cool. So first and foremost, which one are you? Are you going as an adult to adult, or are you going as a parent guardian of children? So as a parent guardian of children, you have to address a completely different set of things. You have to figure out how you're getting there. First off, so we'll go with the common stuff. First off, who's got the tickets? How are you getting there? Where are you parking? First things. And then, how are you getting back from the event to your house? Okay, so those are the commonalities. Now it gets kind of funky. Actually, no, there's another one. Staying hydrated. How are you going to stay hydrated? Are you bringing money to pay for water or soda, or preferably water? Or are you allowed to bring in containers of liquid? If you can bring in a couple of canteens, a couple of water bottles. If it's hot, I suggest something with some salt and potassium, maybe Gatorade or something like that. And that's for both groups of people. If you're adulting, probably want more of the Gatorade type stuff because you're adulting. But regardless, you want to make sure you have enough for yourself and the people that you're with. If you have 4 kids, you have to have a crap load of liquids or money to purchase said liquids. Get water, cold, whatever. Make sure you got plenty. So, we're talking about kids first. So if you're bringing children, first off, you automatically are extremely limited in alcohol intake, if at all. I prefer the none because it's easier that way. No alcohol, fine. You don't have to keep track of how many you've had. So none. Next, you have to deal with food. At traditional Highland, now when I say traditional, I mean Highland festivals, Scottish games that are done the way they are most places. Most places that I've been to, they have a good number of food vendors with Scottish food. Most kids that I know don't like that kind of food. I say most. If you're lucky, there are at least 1 or 2 vendors who have corn dogs, hot dogs, burgers, something that is not haggis, fish and chips, English or Scottish food, or Irish food. Something that's normal American food. So young kids, they know it, they'll look at it, they'll eat it, and they will put it in their belly. Preferably with some kind of liquids to keep them hydrated. So that, if you are able to bring food in, make sure you have plenty of it, and you can store it in a place that's safe and easily accessible. I was at Loon, there's very limited on-site parking. You have to bring whatever in with you, so you have to pack very intelligently. Make sure that if you're going to bring foodstuffs to whatever event, they stay cold. You don't want hot bologna because that's gross. You don't want whatever you're bringing to get smashed. Dozen of raw eggs thinking you're going to cook. Bad idea. Make sure you have food and also snacks. Snacky snack stuff. Chex Mix is awesome. Stuff that will put nutrients back into their bodies. They're going to be sweating a lot if it's hot. Maybe something with a little bit of salt on it. Something that has more than just cosmetic value or stomach filling value. I'm sorry. And again, back with the Gatorades, stuff like that to keep them hydrated. You also have to be ready for them to lose their shit constantly, because the average Scottish festival has limited or no children events where you can literally bring the kids and they go and do for long periods of time. There's always crafts, things like that. There might be petting zoos. If you're lucky, there are a couple of different areas where they can go practice the Scottish athletics. But that's it. Most of the festivals I've been to, they focus a whole lot on the adult athletes, a whole lot on pipers, a whole lot on vendors, and a whole lot on Scottish dancing. And bands. So there's not a lot of kids stuff to do. So you have to be prepared both mentally and physically for bored children. So I suggest bringing something that they can do, or making sure the festival that you're going to has copious amount of child-friendly events. If you're lucky, they'll be free. Maybe not. You'll have to figure that one out. So then you also need to think about your children as it relates to the bagpipes. Those things are loud as hell. I know I saw at least 5 or 6 different parents who had headphones for their kids because they wanted front row center seats, but the kids are 4 or 2 or whatever their age. So they don't want their ears blown out by 50 pipers 12 feet away. So it's something you got to think about. So, occupying the children's time, making sure they're fed, making sure they're clothed appropriately. If you're going to a Scottish festival, be prepared for it to be hot as hell and hot as hell. The weather doesn't even need to say it's going to be hot. The average, or the festivals I've been to, large, wide open spaces, hot. Even on a normal day, you're out there pounding tar for an hour or two, it gets hot. So bring hats, sunscreen, all of that stuff. If the event goes late into the evening, say some of them I've seen, they stop at 5 or 6, and then there's adult activities after, concerts, whatever, those cost extra. So most parents are out at the close of the entire festival. Make sure that you have bug spray too. Keep that in mind. You might need that. One thing. Okay, so you've got all that, and then you've got, get home. Do you feed the kids before you leave the festival? Feed them on the way home? If it's a significant drive, you also have to take into consideration where you're stopping. On the way home from Loon today, made a horrible decision. Went to this place, I'm not going to mention it. Took an hour to get the food. It was way overpriced, and it wasn't good. So, everydaykt tonight is at almost 11 o'clock. So keep in mind where you're going to get food for the kids, because I know all of this has been focusing on the kids, because if the kids are happy, you can do the things you want to do. So also, and this is lastly, this is a maybe. Most festivals have vendors that have kid-friendly stuff. The little princess things for the girls, all kinds of kids stuff. Make sure you keep an eye on the kids' hands when you go to some vendors. Some vendors have lots of kid-friendly stuff, some don't. Just keep an eye on that. Actually no, that's a decent amount for the kids. Because odds are, if you're going to a Scottish festival and you have children, you know how to adult. Or know how to parent at least well enough so nobody dies. So it's just an overview. Make sure when you go to these events, though, if you bring in kids, you check when it opens and closes, and what you can bring into the festival. Some don't let anything in, some are wide open. So you have to just check. All right, now for the important stuff. I'm sorry, and there was one other, I apologize, I forgot to mention this. This goes for both adulting and parenting. Make sure you know when the festival opens and closes ahead of time. If you show up with kids and you only have a couple of hours left, you are probably going to want to go walk around, look and see specific things. Go meet people, look at vendors you hadn't seen in a while, all of those kind of things. Go check stuff out. So you want to make sure you give yourself plenty of time to do that early in the day, So you can go sit and watch the caber toss. You can watch the championship pipe competitions. You can watch the dancers if you want, or you can go watch the medieval weapons display or demonstrations. You can go watch these things because you've already gone to all of the vendors and the static things early. That way you'll be able to get that out of the way. If you show up midday and the festival closes at 5 or 6, you're screwed because you're hauling the kids around constantly. Let's go, let's go, let's go, run, run, run. Can't sit down and rest, and everybody's grumpy. So that's the parent side of how to prep for a Scottish festival. I may have left some things out, wouldn't doubt it, but that's a rough primer. Okay, so going as an adult to adult, whole different ball game here. So first and foremost, know when you get there, doesn't matter what time it is, you have to have your ID, cash, copious amounts of cash, because obviously you're adulting. You're probably adulting with beverages. Beverages are not cheap. Beverages usually take money, and money is cash. Cash, ID. I'm not going to tell you what you can and can't do or can and can't bring into festivals because I don't know. It varies from festival to festival, so that's on you. Just be careful and remember that almost every single state in the country will put you in jail for driving, getting pulled over with a flask in your sporing. So keep that in mind. Be safe, regardless of what you do. Okay, so you have your ID, you have cash. If you are kilted and adulting, the undergarment issue is up to you. You know, when I'm in parent mode, it's not a question. It's not even it's not optional. It just is. But when you're adulting, it's up to you. So I suggest you bring anti-chafing, whatever you use. Gold Bond. Gold Bond has a new stick out that is for chafing. That stuff is awesome. You would also potentially want to bring a second shirt because if you're adulting during the day and you're planning on adulting during the night, if it is a long, sweaty, gross day and you show up to the evening concert and it is 5 o'clock, you've been stinking up your shirt all day long. Bring it back up. Just in case. You never know. So that helps. Make sure you know where the hell your friends are all the time. Okay? If you're going to a Scottish festival, especially if you have to travel, and you're not staying at home, do not get left behind. Do not be that guy who wound up at the Scotch tasting and had a great time, but then went over to the Scottish beer tent and had a great time as well. Don't get left behind. Make sure you know where your friends are. Make sure you know you got all of their numbers, especially if they're friends that have come together for the festival and then you spread out afterwards. They're not folks who live near you. Got all their phone numbers. You know how to get hold of every one of them, and you stay together. I know it sounds very childish to be telling adults to do this, but you have to because it screws you up all the time. Make sure someone in that group knows who's driving and is reminded of that. Because if somebody's DD and they decide they don't want to be DD again, the whole day can go to shit instantly. Make sure whoever that is a responsible individual and stays in that role. He might not have as much fun as everybody else, but you don't have to be hammered to have a hell of a good time at the Scottish Festival. There are all manner of ways that you can have a hell of a good time without getting drunk. It's awesome. It's easy. I did it today. No problem at all. So make sure you know where your people are, who your people are, where your money is at all times, where your ID is at all times, and who's in charge of driving around and the whole kilt chafing thing. Now, this piece gets kind of interesting. If you're one of those people who knows vendors or knows people who are at the various tents, again, make sure you get there early enough to go shenaniganize and talk with these people. But since you're adulting, do me a favor and do them a favor and don't just kind of hover at one specific booth and effectively take up their sales time. Because if they're working the booth, they're there for one reason: sell whatever stuff they have. Be it memberships to a clan, kilts, skeins, kilt pins, doesn't matter. That's why they're there. And if you're there the whole time not helping them in their booth, their sales numbers could go down. So if you are going to pick a booth and say, hey, I'm going to go hang out with Mike today because he's at Utilakilts, step up your game a little bit and say, hey, you know what, Mike, this is cool. I want to hang with you today. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to see if I can get that guy in a kilt because that guy's wearing pants and that kilt looks like it fit him. See if we can't make something happen. Make sure it's okay with the person, though. Don't just show up and say, oh, by the way, I'm working for you today. No. You'll piss people off really bad. But make sure that you get the okay. And if they're like, hey, look, I could use the help. I'm one short because what's-his-nuts got hammered last night and is still at the hotel room. Make sure it's okay. Odds are they'll love the help. Don't be a douche about it, though. At the end of the day, you're hanging out, you're having a good time. Don't sit there and say, oh, by the way, hey, I helped you. I sold 15 kilts and blah, blah, blah. Hook me up. Like, no, don't do that. Don't be an ass about it. Have a good time. Help everybody out. But remember, it's all completely related to what that vendor says. If they say no, then you have to move on. Don't sit there and just hover around, loitering, hogging up potential customer space. Go find something else to do. There is a Scottish festival going on. There are Bonnie's Knees contests probably. There are people throwing things, people lifting things, people throwing things even after lifting things, people jumping up and down on things, people playing things, all kinds of good shenanigans to be had. So just don't take up those people's times if you don't have to. And the most important thing I can say is be aware of how much you're drinking. As an adult, I'm only saying this because in all the games I've ever been to, I've only seen the police contacted for one reason. Somebody had too much to drink. It's happened a few times, but that's the only time I've ever seen the police actually contacted for something. So make sure that you know what you're doing. You know, if you know that you're in for the long haul, don't start drinking pitcher at a time at 8:30 in the morning. Pace yourself and pace yourself well. Make sure you eat plenty. Back to the Gatorade. Shit tons of Gatorade or water or whatever non-alcoholic liquid you could put in there. A friend of mine at a Scottish fest a while ago had a perfect equation. He drinks a beer and an equal quantity of water. And as he can find them, he will sub the water out for some kind of sports drink with the carbs and the electrolytes and the sodium and all the other stuff to replenish the body because of all the beer they've been drinking. Wound up an awesome equation. Granted, he was going to the bathroom constantly, but end of the night, he was still cognizant. I could still have an intelligent conversation with him and was not falling over himself. So important. It's very good stuff to know, to keep in mind. Lastly, most important thing is know where the bathrooms are. Scout them out ahead of time. Invariably, there will be one location at whatever festival you're at where there is a publicly accessible bathroom that either appears out of the way, appears not to be in use, or doesn't even look like a bathroom at all. Scottish festivals, whatever, wildly and immensely attended events. Bathroom lines get incredibly long, especially towards the end of the day as the beer starts kicking in. Make sure you know where they are, and if you have kids, know which ones are kid accessible. The handicap ones are really easy for the younger children, but make sure you know where those things are and make sure you're able to when you're with kids, get them to there. When you're adulting, just know where they are so you don't wind up having an accident in the middle of the road. So with that, that's your basics on how to go to a Highland festival. Now, there are tons of other things that should be kept in mind, but basically, know where your money is, know where your food is, know where your people are, kids or friends, whichever, doesn't matter. Don't overdo it. Watch for the dehydration. Drink water. Water, water, water. Tons of it. Too many people get dehydrated and get sick. So be careful. And if you see someone wearing this shirt who looks like this guy right here, odds are he's got one of these for you. Tell him be strong, put a kilt on. Odds are you'll get one. So, with that, I'll let you go. I know there's a lot of folks who have more Scottish festivals tomorrow. I know Scotfest down in Tulsa's rocking and rolling tonight. It's been going on strong. I know Loon's going on this weekend as well. So all kinds of options. You know, Midwest, Tulsa one is great. Fantastic. If you get to go watch Rub Right and Hardigan. Best whiskey tasting I've ever seen. If you go to Loon tomorrow, I don't know what's there, but they have books and stuff online you can look at. Check it out. So go rest up. Make sure you rehydrate. Go pick up what you need for tomorrow. And be strong. Put a kilt on.